Hey losers, what's happening? Some of you may remember waking up on November 6, 2024 to finding out that Kamala Harris lost the presidential election. Now, I don't mean to sound dramatic, but the evening of December 25th, 2025 felt strangely like that over on Byler Tumblr. A war that we've been fighting is over. At least that's what it's looking like, because we are days away from the finale of the Stranger Things story that has been by our side for the past 9 years, and they spent the last batch of episodes disassembling everything fans have known and hoped for, which culminates in how we are slowly waiting to see what could be the grossest example of queerbaiting in modern television history. I want to make clear that Will and Mike being love interests, them getting together, of course that is not the main purpose of this show. I know that, and I don't want to reduce the show to just that. However, their story brings appeal to different audience members and strengthens the main themes of the show as a whole, bringing power to outsiders and shining a light on the struggles that young people face in our world. And now, this carefully constructed relationship between these two characters has been burned to the ground in Season 5, Episode 7. The entire basis of Will's queer coming-of-age storyline has been destroyed in something that the Duffers are failing to realize. We do not applaud the bare minimum of queer storylines. We do not appreciate the mockery that the dipshit Duffers are making of their queer audiences. It's frankly disgusting. There's a certain pessimistic air that's surrounding us realists about the chances of Byler, simply in the facts that have been laid out for us. And I want to walk everyone through all these facts and how they are setting us up for the greatest disappointment of our lives. And for the record, I rarely ever theorize about shows or movies or anything until they're finished, because what the hell do I know? Who's to say that they don't do a dramatic plot twist and Mike and Will make out in the final episode? I didn't make the show. But regardless, even if that does happen, take this video simply as a warning to you, the Duffers, and any other writers out there of what happens when you disrespect your characters and your audiences in this way, because we will not stand for it. You know the drill. I'm going to read what I wrote down here. You can just sit and listen, look at what's behind me, close your eyes. I don't care. I'm pissed. The Duffers, in my mind, have sort of ruined their careers with a recent interview that they did with the LA Times. It's to make clear that they want the message for audiences to be that power, true power, is found within yourself. Will was able to unlock his power after he looked into himself and accepted himself as who he was, something that he did not need Mike's approval to do. And according to Ross Duffer, quote, that's more of an important message to put out to younger viewers. To put out a message that's it'll all be all right if this secret crush you have works out versus you don't need that. Even if it disappoints people, it's the more important message to put into the world, end quote. Matt adds, quote, not one crush of mine worked out, end quote. The message that they think is so important is to tell queer people that they need self-acceptance before all, which is so true, right? But they fail to realize that acceptance from others is also important, and they fail to realize that because they haven't experienced it. Matt Duffer having a crush on a girl that doesn't like him back is not the same as a queer person having a crush on someone and having to keep it a secret, feeling like it's impossible to find someone that's like them that they can have a life with. They don't know what it's like to fear for their family, their friends not loving them. They don't know what it's like to feel unworthy of love, which is exactly how Will feels, saying that he's not going to fall in love in season 3. The Duffers have the audacity to tell queer people that they don't need love. They don't need to be loved by other people as long as they love themselves, forgetting that it's also a fact in their show that power comes with friendship, with love. Will doesn't need Mike to love him to have powers, but Elle sure does. She can't reach her full potential in season 4 until Mike tells her that he loves her. But Will is just fine believing that Mike doesn't love him, thinking that it's a lost cause before he even attempts to find the love that he wants. In the same episode that Will declares that he doesn't need love, Max tells Lucas that all that she needed was his love. Your straight female character can attribute her whole worth to the guy she's in love with, but your gay character is not allowed to show a passion for someone, a passion that we know Will has, because as he asks Robin, he wants to know how to tell if someone wants to date him, if someone wants to be in a relationship with him. What's so interesting about it all, too, is that along with the idea of Will needing to accept himself in order to feel power, that's not what happened. Will didn't overcome his fear with his great coming out scene and feel strength in himself. Let's look at the wording of how he came out. It was in him saying, "I don't like girls," something that Noah Schnapp told Deadline was chosen because, quote, "It's hard and it feels scary to say gay. In the 80s, I can't imagine how much more pressure there was and how much more there was to lose. When Will is first coming to terms with it in front of his friends, he's probably scared to use that word," end quote. He is still living in fear. This scene was bathed in fear and worry from Will. It is not him realizing that he finally has power in himself and that he's ready to defeat Vecna. He needs more. He needs to be loved. But again, the Duffers tell us that he doesn't. It's more important for people to accept their unrequited love so they can in turn accept who they truly are. And it's fine to have a character with that storyline, but why choose your gay main character? Why choose the one that has already been alone and suffering his entire life? Especially because you already have a character with an unrequited crush. Steve. Steve's entire thing has been that he's in love with Nancy, that he doesn't have a personality, a life outside of his love for Nancy, despite the fact that it's now clear to us that she doesn't love him back. You have the opportunity to use this character arc with Steve, especially because Will has so much more to juggle. His character is not tied to romance, it's just a factor of who he is, whereas it's Steve's entire motivation. Will says in season 4 that he will always need Mike, and Mike specifically, whereas Steve hits on every single girl he sees because he is so insecure and he doesn't know what to do with himself when he's not in a relationship. Maybe your message should be showing queer people that they do deserve to be loved, while also telling your Steve types that they are worth much more than being conventionally attractive with a much more capable girl on their arm. I have maybe the slightest bit of hope that the Duffers didn't forget about Will's wants and desires, like, how they forgot about his birthday. I hope that they do plan to give Will love. But then I also remember that Will getting love doesn't mean Will getting Mike. It could very so easily just be him getting a random epilogue boyfriend, especially because Noah Schnapp shared in that interview with Deadline, quote, "I know I could definitely relate to some of those feelings of being in love with a best friend who's not in love with you," end quote. He's telling us that Mike doesn't feel the same way and that they are not going to end up together. And finally, we are not being coy about Byler, because up until this week, it has been completely unthinkable to breathe the possibility of Byler in the air. Byler has been the most hushed topic in this show, and now we know that that's because the ship is treated with a certain level of seriousness among the other romantic ships. It's not a crack ship, it's not Raw Nance that everyone knows isn't going to happen. Byler has actual stakes and always had, because it has actual possibility. We are finally addressing them with the dash of romantic subtext that they've always had. The Duffers told the LA Times in that same interview with the gross claims about the importance of the queer experience that Jonathan and Nancy's breakup was, quote, "not dissimilar in some ways to the Mike-Will stuff. These are people who do love each other very much. It's just a question of what does that mean? What does the future look like for them?" End quote. They're addressing what Noah Schnapp once said of Will and Mike's relationship always seeming like it had a level of romance. But at the same time, I think they're soft launching that Byler is not happening. Jonathan and Nancy are apparently the same as Will and Mike, two characters that love each other, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be together. So, is it over? Quite possibly. At least narratively, is Byler still able to happen? I always said that the only way to avoid Byler happening in a way that made sense was to kill Mike or Will. Well, now that they have killed their chances of being together, I'm now realizing that I think the only way to make Byler happen in a way that makes sense now rests in the hands of Mike Wheeler. As the Duffers confirmed to People magazine, Mike now knows that Will had a crush on him, and yet there was nothing in episode 7 that gave Mike a chance to understand that, to develop that. In fact, Mike hasn't had the chance to do literally anything. We can be hopeful all that we want because Finn Wolfhard said way back when that the Duffers told him that the van scene would, quote, pay off in the end. But remember that that's what the Duffers told him, and they're the ones who wrote this shit and are proud of it. They're proud of the scene that had Will coming out to his mother and his science teacher and the love of his life and his brother's enemy and his best friends and this random fucking girl he's never met all at the same time, because apparently queer people owe an explanation of who they are to everyone in their life. They're proud that it actually was in front of so many people so that they didn't have to use their runtime giving Will individual moments with people that actually matter to him. They're proud of this scene that is just Noah Schnapp crying for 3 minutes as he relives every single dark moment that he had growing up queer without any reaction or contribution from everyone else in the room. Not his mom realizing that her son is scared out of his mind, not his friends interested that he had a crush on someone, not anyone offering anything except for a light applause. They're proud that Will can't say he's gay because he is scared out of his mind since it's the 80s and you can't say gay in the 80s, and yet even though it's the 80s, none of the 30 people in this room with him have complex emotions about this admission. They're proud that now they don't have to worry about this storyline anymore, which is terrifying, actually. This scene is so out of place and feels so rushed, which just proves how bad of writers the Duffers are, because they said that this scene took the most time to write. They think that they landed this plane so well, and now their work is done with Will, and I do thoroughly believe that because they haven't made an effort to do anything else with this story arc throughout this season. And I say that because they're forgetting that all of Will's self-actualization actually does have to do with Mike. It has to do with remembering his friendship with Mike, with accepting that Mike won't feel the same, and yet we don't even know if that's true because Mike hasn't done shit. Well, Mike actually has done a lot of shit over the years. He's been the friend that always showed Will extra care, that has always understood and defended him. He's the one that first acknowledged that Will was gay. He's the one that was awkward hugging him in the airport. He's the one that has been low-key flirting with Will for the better halves of seasons 4 and 5. And yet, these past couple of episodes, there's been a switch flipped. He's back to just standing in the background. Sean Levy has said that Finn Wolfhard had to do some emotional carrying this season with a great emotional monologue, and maybe that's a fact. Mike will have a strong emotional moment this season. That sounds great for Byler, but another fact is that we only have 2 hours. 2! What we need is Mike's point of view. We don't know how he feels about Elle since Will was the one that rubbed his back and told him that he needs to tell Elle that he loves her. We don't know how he feels about Will or how he feels knowing that Will's gay, that he had a crush on him. We don't know what Mike is thinking about anything, which is exactly how Will started the series. Season 1, the audience was introduced to him only through the eyes of other people. What we learned about Will wasn't facts, it was just other people's opinions on him, giving the audience the ability to create their own perception of his character. Plainly now that's happening to Mike as well, as he's just standing there in the background the whole time. In order for anything with Byler to happen, we need to be in Mike's mind. And it's so funny that all of this is resting in the hands of Mike Wheeler, because the whole reason that we want Byler is for Mike Wheeler. I've been crawling around in the depths of Tumblr, so forgive me for stealing the words of other people a little bit, but we aren't rooting for Byler because we want to see 2 boys kiss, okay? We want to give substance to characters that have nothing else going for them. We want to look for explanations behind the bullshit that these characters do. We want there to be meaning behind the painting and behind Mike's awkward hug. We want to understand why Mike's been a terrible boyfriend to Elle and why he's always treated Will differently than his other friends. Why he didn't kiss Elle back in season 3 and why he's always looking at Will's lips. We want Will to finally get something that makes him happy, and we want Mike to finally feel like someone needs him. And do we have time to do that in 2 hours? Hell if I know, I guess. What I do know, though, is that I do not trust the dipshit Duffers at all. Throughout the years this show has been airing, there has been a multitude of plot holes, of inconsistencies, of plain old bad characterization and writing that we've just brushed under the rug, that we've explained away for them. I mean, I've referenced 1,000 articles that they've done for Volume 2 because they are such bad storytellers that they needed to go do interviews to explain that yes, Jonathan and Nancy are broken up, and yes, Mike does now know about Will's feelings because they didn't make it clear enough in the goddamn show. We've always given them the benefit of the doubt. We've even filled gaps for them. We've made up explanations for them and dug in deeper to the little hints or details that they put into the show. And apparently, they don't even like that. Besides the times that they've plainly shut down the explanations or theories that fans have come up with, they've also admitted that, quote, every little minute thing is seen as something significant even when that wasn't our intention. Not that we don't plant things for later and do Easter eggs, but 99.9% of the writer's room is just talking about these characters in the story they're on. That is hopefully how you're going to be watching this show, because it can be overwhelming when you see this stuff online, end quote. this stuff referring to theories and analysis. Even with shipping culture, they've said, quote, when we were growing up, shipping was not a thing. This is a new thing and it gets intense, end quote. Which is just plainly not true when you think that they'd know that as sci-fi fans who are definitely aware of the existence of Star Trek. Fans have been saying for years that Byler has the potential to be the best slow-burn queer love story in modern television, and they have just thrown it all away. It is baffling, the pride that the Duffers have in themselves to be so willing to throw that away. Maybe respectful with how they aren't trying to have ownership over these details that weren't their intentions, but in their hunt to not feed into what fans want, they have also ignored all criticism. Mike Wheeler is turning out to be one of the worst written characters ever. Just a blank slate that they can use for whatever filler they need. We need someone to be angry? Let's grab Mike. We need someone to figure out this puzzle? Let's grab Mike. When I imagine them writing the show, I imagine them going, then Lucas would say this in this situation, and Dustin would say that. But they figure out Mike's lines with, oh, we need someone to say this, it can just be Mike. There has been steady criticism of Mike's character and lack thereof since season 3, since 2019, and instead of taking advantage of his potential to be one of the best written queer characters, they're just gonna let him drown. They had the opportunity to revolutionize media, to change how the horror and sci-fi genres treat queer characters and storylines, to challenge how people view queer people, especially in this political climate, to make the ultimate claim of allyship and an unapologetic and authentic treatment of queer themes. They had this beautiful story handed to them, and they blew it up. But not only did they blow it up, they've exploited it. They've exploited us. We need to discuss queerbaiting. Queerbaiting is a marketing technique, a media piece using queer themes or hinting at queer romances or characters or anything in order to draw in an audience. It's false advertising, to put it simply, and we know that the Duffers are capable of that. Let's think about that quote from Sean Levy earlier when he said that Finn Wolfhard does a lot of emotional carrying. Both him and the Duffers have been praising Finn and Noah to heaven and back over their performances this season because they know that these two actors are fan favorite, that these two actors are at the helm of the most popular ship in their show, and so if they say that they have emotional scenes and are acting opposite each other, it's going to get people talking. There's going to be buzz about the possibility of Byler, right? But that was just simply not true. Don't get me wrong, Noah has done a mountain of impressive work, but who has also been doing the performances of their lives this season? Gaten and Caleb. Throughout the press tour, there could have been teases that Gaten and Caleb had great emotional material, and it would have actually been true. But here they are, twisting the narrative because the actual canon of their show doesn't matter when they're trying to just get people to talk about it. Instead, they know that they'll get more engagement from exploiting the interest audiences have in Mike and Will. And as a more blatant example of them twisting the narrative in promotional material, did we all notice the couple of shots in season 5 that were from the trailer, but were different from what we saw in the trailer? In the moment where Will yells, "Run!" his eyes are white, but in the teaser, they're normal. In the scene that Vecna is putting Will in a trance, Will's eyes start bleeding, but in the trailer, they're normal. They changed these scenes from their final cuts for the trailer. That's false advertising. The reasoning for it doesn't matter, in my opinion. I know that they were protecting their story, but that's not how trailers work. If they have the capacity to lie about scenes from their show to hide the performances of actors, what else do they have the capacity to lie about, to hide? When you start fabricating this different version of your show to draw in audiences, where do you stop? It's rocky claiming Byler as queerbaiting because we were halfway there, right? Will does love Mike, so it actually was fair to have this promotional material that places them together and has us associate them together. However, I still feel like it's queerbaiting because there was never even a chance for them to get together. I want to add in the queerbaiting that Will has never been what was being queerbaited. Will has always been gay. What it has been if Mike shares his feelings. That's been what they've been baiting us with. Since we've been seeing their relationship through Will's perspective, we've been seeing Will wondering if Mike likes him back, right? We've been seeing the shared glances and the elbow bumps and the playful flirting. We've been seeing Will wondering if Mike likes him back. So the baiting there is that. It's on Mike's side of it. It's the baiting of, does Mike like him back or not? Teasing the Jonathan, Nancy, Steve love triangle to draw in fans is fair because Nancy has been with Steve and she's been with Jonathan. They have equal chances here. But as we've learned in episode 7, Will doesn't have a chance with Mike, so there is nothing to tease. Leading up to episode 7, the show and the promotional material of marketing Will and Mike to always be associated with each other was all baiting us because it was making us think that there was a chance Mike likes Will back, only for them to just tell us, no, he's straight. And yes, it is just Will's word that Mike is actually straight and doesn't like him back. Yes, Will could totally be wrong. But Mike actually kind of does have to be straight in order for this awful arc that they created for Will to work. Will's entire coming out, his entire reasoning for why he was taken was because he's different from his friends, and there is power in difference. He has unlocked this potential because he is different. Mike being gay, Mike liking guys takes away from that difference that Will is, the unique part of Will that simultaneously made him a target and makes him stronger. If Mike reciprocates his feelings, then what was that coming out? No, Will, you're not different at all. We're exactly the same. The whole point of his arc is that he is different and that he has accepted that he's different. Not that he's learning he's actually not different at all. So is it over? Did we lose? I think so. The way that they are handling Byler is such a slap in the face to their queer audiences. It's so laughable and so ironic that they had to confirm in an interview that through Mike's micro expressions in the coming out scene, he was understanding Will was in love with him, that they're telling us that these micro expressions are important while simultaneously destroying the validity behind all the analysis that fans have done of this show. Oh, this look from Mike is important, but not all the thousands of others that he's had on this show. Him nodding means that he knows who Will is talking about, but him looking at Will's lips mean nothing, even though Nancy looking at Jonathan's lips meant something. It's frankly gross how a marketing tactic for season 5 was based in over-analysis. They had the quiz with Google, and they had some decoding stuff in merchandising, the stupid post of what's Holly looking at with her telescope, and a whole stage play that strengthens the foreshadowing, and now also whatever the hell is happening on Spotify with decoding songs on the Squawk station. They know that their audience is full of people that love their show and that pull every little detail apart, and they are blatantly exploiting it, using us to keep the buzz of the show alive, and then tearing us down because none of our theorizing has ever mattered. All that they want is to see their hashtag trending and people talking about them. It has never mattered what we were saying. Obviously, we don't know for sure until the finale is out that we've all been wrong all along, but what I do know is that I am dreading the finale. I have tickets to see it in theaters, and I don't want to go because I don't want to give the Duffers my attention. I don't want to contribute to the commercial success of a show that has demolished great strides that we've made in queer media. Hell, Ross Duffer was married to the director of the Fear Street movies, and I also just now learned that she divorced him last year. Is this why his massacre of queer storytelling? We need to have higher standards. It means nothing for Noah Schnapp to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the coming out scene would have made such a difference for me as a kid, because he was a kid 10 years ago. We need to be focused on what would make a difference in the world now. We need to not just be satisfied. I don't know exactly when it was, but Noah Schnapp spoke on Will's ending, saying that audiences would be, quote, satisfied, end quote. Over this time, we focused on the happy. We believe that he's changed his wording from happy to not give anything away, but I think that he actually changed his wording to satisfied. We need to focus on the satisfied. I'm linking the articles that I referenced in the description. I think all of them, I don't know. You can follow me everywhere at LyricallyXO. I was hacked on TikTok though, so that's a major bummer. I have nothing else to say. I'm so, angry. So let me know how angry you are in the comments. All right, don't get eaten by a clown.